So Ariel is asking about fall planting. She says, what module or course to help with fall planting and planting? Most of my bed space is still occupied with summer crops, which are not done yet, and I am tucking some lettuce sets in corners. Not sure how to go about amending for fall, including cover crops. Do I wait for frost and then work around my overwintering stuff? Cover crops, fall amendments, overwintering, never done these. What module do I look to? Okay, so for those of you who are beginners, keep in mind that if all of these concepts are new to you, you will get to all of this. And keep in mind that we're going to go through all of these concepts. So if you hear something that you're not sure what it is, don't worry if it's over your head, because we haven't gone through any of this yet. But I do want to answer this because I know that this is timely for a lot of people. So within this course, what you're going to find is over time, you're going to kind of see how all the pieces fit together of a holistic growing system. And you can take my growing system and you can kind of adapt it to your spaces. And it's your system's going to emerge with time based on the factors that are presented in all the different modules. So in Module 2, which was released yesterday, it's all about soil fertility and cover cropping. So if you're moving into fall and you want to know how do I prepare my planting beds for the fall and make sure that that I get a good cover crop in, there is a video about that. Now, for beginners, what cover cropping does is the big couple things it does. It makes sure that your soil doesn't erode because the root systems are going to hold the soil together. It also brings nutrients into the soil. These cover crops actually suck nutrients out of the sky and into the soil. It's pretty amazing. And as they grow, what they're going to do is they're going to grow to be baby plants in the fall, and then you're not going to do anything all winter long. They're just going to sit there kind of hibernating, and then when it gets warm enough, they're going to explode into their full-blown plantness. And just before they flower, you're basically going to chop them down, and all the nutrients that are present in those crops, you're going to dump it onto your soil, and basically you get all those nutrients fed back into your soil. So you're getting that soil fertility back into the soil. So there's a lot of benefits to cover cropping. And you're also holding moisture in the plant, in the soil, which is also good. So just a lot of benefits. You can also increase, if you have a lot of clay soil, there's certain cover crops you can plant in order to help those root systems tunnel through that clay and maybe make some space in that clay and make it easier for you to garden. So cover crops can do a lot of things for you. So Module 2 goes through a lot of those concepts. So that was just released yesterday. Module 4, we're going to talk about planting schedule and crop planning. So you're going to learn how to time those things so that you're ready to put in the fall crops when they need to go in. And then I'll talk about that in just a minute for what you should do where you are now. Module 7 is going to talk about harvesting and pruning to maximize your space so that you're ready to plant, and I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. Module 8 is going to talk about growing garlic over the winter, how you plant it, and for many people it might be that time of year, so I should release that video as well. And then Module 8, I released that video on season extension as well. So if you're somewhere where the temperatures have already been getting cooler, you might want to warm up your planting beds and add some blankets, so to speak, to your planting beds. So check out that video on season extension. So you can, the idea is that you are extending the number of days that you can grow food. That's what season extension means. Okay, so those are the places in the course that you're going to learn these different concepts. But what I want to do for you, since you're in this spot now where you're transitioning to fall, I want to go through some of the things that you're going to need to do to transition. So number one is you want to figure out when you're going to put in your cover crops and your garlic, and you want to plant those 30 days before the first frost. And to do that, you may need to undercrop, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. First, let's take a moment and look at dates. I think I put it in here. So I looked up in Oregon, I think you're in Ashland, Ariel, and your first frost could potentially be October 4th, which is about 30 days away. So really, it's time for you to be thinking about planting your garlic and planting your cover crops so that they are tall enough. They really want to be about 4 to 6 inches tall before the ground starts to freeze up. And that makes sure that you get a nice crop that's going to hibernate all winter long. It's going to be strong. It looks really good. It looks really lush. It's going to survive the winter. So 30 days is going to get you there. So you're about at that time. So for people who want to double check the calendar, this is from the Farmers Almanac website, and you can basically just type in your place and it will tell you your first frost date based on 50% probability. So it's something that people use quite a bit. Keep in mind that with the strange weather patterns we're having, it could stay warm longer, and that's okay. It just means that your cover crop is going to grow a little bit taller. It's okay if it stays warmer. But what you want to avoid is if it gets cold really fast, you really want a good cover crop to come in and protect that soil. And in order to do that, you need a couple weeks. So get those in the ground 30 days before your first frost. Now I mentioned undercropping. I said, you may need to undercrop it because you said you still have plants in place now and you don't want to pull them out because they're producing. So how do you put your cover crop down? Keep in mind, you may not cover crop everything. Let's say you were growing a bed of arugula and it's just filled with arugula. There's no space anywhere. You might just keep growing that right up until the first frost and not put a cover crop in, and I'll show you what to do with that in a minute, but basically then you can just mulch it for the winter. So you may not cover crop everything, but if you have space underneath your crops, let's say you're growing tomatoes right now or peppers or anything that's kind of up elevated off of the ground, here's an idea of, tomato plants. So if you think about the way that sun falls on your bed, if you can prune the lower 12 to 18 inches of your plants, and no matter what plant, here I'm showing tomato plants, but maybe this applies to, just about anything. Like let's say you have kale or collards, you want to take off all the lower leaves that you can. You don't want to take away all the leaves, but take away the bottom leaves so you can expose the soil and get it ready to cover crop. And because these crops are bigger, the cover crop is going to be just fine growing in as little babies, and these bigger plants are going to be just fine. They're going to take precedence over the cover crops, but they're not going to steal nutrients from each other because one's a baby, one's an adult. And then keep in mind let me show you a picture first. So this is a picture of foxtrot. It's tomatoes on one side, on the left, cucumbers on the right. There's a bunch of basil on the ground there underneath the tomatoes. So notice that, I prune out that lower area so that all season long I can grow another crop under my tomatoes and get big lush blanket of basil. And then when it comes time to cover crop, basil is really sensitive to the cold, and it actually starts to kind of turn black and yellow. It doesn't like the cold. And so I just basically come through, I pull it all out, and I lay down my cover crop. I keep the tomatoes around as long as possible. I try to let those tomatoes ripen on the vine as long as possible. And I broadcast my cover crop underneath those tomatoes, and then I put down like a dusting of compost over the top of those seeds. So I'm adding fertility, and my cover crop will eventually even add more fertility. Now the one drawback to this scenario is that we talked about diseases with tomatoes. If you have diseased tomatoes, you more than likely want to pull out the roots of the tomatoes so that those tomatoes, that those diseases don't stay in the soil if you have to plant tomatoes there in the future. But we talked about the rotation plan. So if you're rotating your tomatoes and you know you're not going to grow tomatoes there next year, you can just cut that down. Once it comes time for the tomatoes to be done for the season, you can just cut them down to the soil line, and everything below ground, all the root systems are just going to decompose, and they're just going to become more organic matter that's present in your bed while that cover crop grows in. So you can see how these systems, they work together. But if you're growing the same thing in the same bed year after year, you couldn't necessarily undercrop because you would want to pull those top plants out completely before you plant the cover crop. Do you see how that works? I hope that's clear. And then, like I mentioned, throughout the winter, your cover crop is going to be, a couple inches tall. It's going to get snowed on. It's going to be fine. It's all good. And then basically in the spring, you're going to chop that cover crop down. I talk about this in Module 2 in the soil fertility video, so you can hear all about it there. And this is one of the slides which talks about the best practices depending on what kind of tools you have available. And I mentioned not every bed is going to get cover cropped. Let's say you have a bed of arugula or lettuce, it's just jam-packed, or carrots, or it's just filled and there's no space to put a cover crop down. Then what I would recommend doing is at the end of the season, you can try to cover crop it if you feel like it's unseasonably warm and maybe there's some time and maybe it will sprout. You can try to sprout it. But another thing that you can do is just cover it with organic material, some kind of mulch. And if you have leaves handy, fallen leaves, that will work. If you live in an area where there's not leaves present, then you could mulch it with anything that's available that's going to make sure that the soil doesn't erode and it's going to hold some moisture in. And this photo is kind of funny, speaking of climate change and all the different activity in the world, the fires and the floods. Notice that plum tree in the background here? That plum tree is sideways. That was because of hurricane, what was the name of that hurricane? I forgot the name of that hurricane. We had 2 hurricanes come through Brooklyn 2 years in a row, and that all of our plum trees were sideways the next year. We did end up putting them back upright, and we saved all of them, but it was a nightmare. Okay, so that's a little bit about planning for fall. And like I said, double check that Farmers Almanac. And in Module 4, I'm going to come back and talk about your planting schedule and really dial in all of those planting techniques so you get the most out of your garden for the full season. And, undercropping is one of the best things I know, so that you can grow your crops and then be ready for the winter too. All right? I hope that makes sense. And if you're just getting started, I know that's a lot. It's okay if it's not all 100% clear. It will become more clear. One of the things about having a garden system is that everything is cyclical and everything has a piece of the puzzle, and you have to kind of watch everything unfold once before you understand how it all works, and then you can start to really dial everything in. Okay, I know we're coming up on 90 minutes. I have a couple of questions here from Dominique, and let me just double check in the Q&A box to see what else is there. Okay, so I don't see any other questions in the Q&A box. If you have a question for me, I can't necessarily always go through the chat box, so make sure you post it in the Q&A box. This is probably a really good time to ask any remaining questions, because I'm going to answer a couple from Dominique and then I'm going to wrap up for the night. I'm guessing right now we're at about 90 minutes in. I want to honor your time. I'm guessing that finishing up with Dominique's questions is going to be another 15 or 20 minutes. And if you have to take off, I totally understand. Like I said, everything's time-stamped. One thing I will let you know if you have to take off is that I am ramping up for a garden challenge. Is this the image? The 40-day garden challenge is part of the bonus, the How to Grow $400 in 40 Days, and there will be more details coming about garden prizes that you can receive for competing in the 40-day challenge. You don't have to if you're not ready to this fall, but it's a lot of fun, and it doesn't take a lot of space. So I'm going to be starting this weekend, and I'm going to be updating you with my progress day by day, so you can see another version of the 40-day challenge and what's possible. So I would love for you to join me. So stay tuned for that. And then I'm going to go for another couple minutes here answering Dominique's questions. Okay, let's find Dominique's question. Our first question. So time stamping. Okay. She was asking about pests. I love this question. She says, do you eat the leaves that still look very healthy but have holes? I usually saute them with other greens, and so far I haven't died or been sick, but I wanted to hear your take on it.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And for more simple and practical gardening tips, subscribe to Grow Your Own Vegetables. For more tips and updates, visit gyov.org and join our growing community.